What's up, junkies? Welcome back in for another edition of Pigskin Junkies. Myself, Michael Larson, the big brother, Jared Larson, and joining us now, Tori Gurley from the University of South Carolina. So happy to have you on the show. Thanks for being on with us today.
Oh, man, guys, thanks for having me. I'm in the Carolinas, just wanting to reach out to you and learn some stuff about fantasy football and basically give my insight on what you guys think was going on in the SEC as well as other football conferences in the country.
Definitely. We're looking forward
you're uniquely qualified to do so.
I know. When I was thinking about the show, I was like, all right, do I make a joke? Jared and I both graduating from Auburn. Do I bring up 2010? But you were doing a little bit more in that game than my brother and I were. We were had a different perspective of the game. You were at least, wearing a helmet and pads and actually out there battling, where we were just holding shakers and cheering. So we won't say anything about that game.
I have so many stories about that game. I grew up a diehard Auburn fan. My grandfather is a War Eagle all the way up until I went to South Carolina, and then he became a Gamecock fan. But now he has two teams he pulls for in the SEC. Obviously has a team on the West and a team on the East. But in that game, I scored a touchdown. It meant a lot to me to score in front of my family. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. So, to hang up a touchdown in the corner of the end zone, it's pretty cool, but it just sucked to see Cam Newton turn into Superman that day.
He put on performance, that's for sure.
Yeah, Superman was unleashed on that day. That's the game where he took off from he broke out on a 60-yard run and jumped from the 5-yard line and landed like 10 yards in the back of the end zone. That's when I realized, hey, man, this guy's special.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, he's something else. That was an unbelievable season.
Now, I know Jared, I think, wanted to ask you a question because there's a certain coach you played for that my brother idolizes among many, many head coaches, and I'll give Jared his opportunity to ask you that question. Yeah,
I'm just going to come right out with it. We got to get an old ball coach story. Sometime he said something funny. I don't feel like he hides what he says because he just comes out, well, we're going to get out here, we're going to throw it around. Like, what's the funniest thing that you ever heard him say at practice?
Oh, man, I've heard him do some crazy things, but I think one of the unique stories I have about Coach Spurrier is that he really loved to play golf. And the week we beat Alabama, I went into the office and I went over day one of our install, and he wasn't in there with the golf clubs. And he looked at me and he said, "We're going to stick it on Nick Saban." I was like, "Really, Coach?" So he literally put down the golf clubs and he started drawing up plays on the board. And that's when I knew. I was like, all right, our coach is locked in and we're ready to roll, because he never takes time off from putting or chipping or whatever, because he had all that stuff set up in the office. But for him to take the time and go over the install, and it truly helped us. And we went out and beat Alabama when they were number one in the country.
Yeah, Mike and I love hearing that. We both went to Auburn, so it's like anytime you beat Bama, that's like, yeah, that's now we're talking.
Send them to the Capital One Bowl that year.
Yep,
that's right.
And then they gave a hurting to Mississippi
Michigan
State. Sorry, Michigan State. Yeah, sorry. Whoa, that was a
yeah. What was that, like 52-3 or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Little Nicky had been in some of those guys' ears between that game and the bowl game. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Scary dude.
I think my favorite story is with Jadeveon Clowney, when he came out one day. He was like, "Jadeveon's no longer on the team. He didn't show up, blah, 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 blah." And then the next day he shows up in the interview. He's like, "Well, he's back on the team." I mean, he just was so polarizing as a coach. He was great. I miss having him in the SEC, that's for sure.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun to play for. And another unique story is that, I'm older, so when guys were being recruited, it was normal for us to send in our VHS tapes to the coaches, and they watched it. And the quality of the tape was so bad that they thought I was another guy that was All-American. And that's how I got my scholarship to the University of South Carolina, because, Coach Spurrier didn't know the difference. I mean, it's so grainy and so old, and that's how I got my scholarship. So that's one of the funniest things is that. And also when I went on my official visit to Auburn, and before I was going to sign, Coach Spurrier called and told me that Tommy Tuberville was going to be fired, and he was like, they're going to bring in somebody else. And I looked at Coach Tuberville, and he was like, yeah, they're going to replace me, and most likely Gene Chizik is going to be the new coach. And he was like, but there's this kid named Cameron Newton. He's a hell of an athlete. We're recruiting him out of Blinn. I think you guys would be a great combination. And I looked at him. I was like, I don't know who the hell Cameron Newton is.
Yeah.
And literally, I ended up going to South Carolina and signing with South Carolina and playing with Steven Garcia because I knew who he was just because he keyed the professor's car. So, it's crazy how a couple months later I ended up playing against the Heisman Trophy winner and national champion while, playing at South Carolina, being with, Marcus Lattimore and Steven Garcia. But that's crazy how football and life just have those twists.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Lattimore, too, was committed to Auburn with Michael Dyer for a while.
Exactly. So it was Auburn and South Carolina was on the same recruiting trail when it came to getting the blue chip guys. And it's just crazy how I end up, switching at the last minute. Literally, I was going to sign to Auburn because my granddad, I was going to make him – he was going to be the proudest dude on earth. And it's just literally Coach Spurrier called me and talked me right out of it while I was next to Coach Tuberville.
That's crazy.
Man, So he called you up, got you in there. We know what Urban said to Steven Garcia to push him to South Carolina. So, yeah, like you said, just crazy the way things happen.
That's how it all worked out. So, but I think Auburn has one of the most beautiful campuses I've ever been on. It was pretty cool to actually, walk around down there. It was unbelievable.
Well, you're not going to find
be our guest anytime you want. Come on down. We're at all the SEC home games.
It's true.
Make it happen.
So we'll dive right into it. We'll talk about your Gamecocks. For one, I love me some Will Muschamp. I've loved Coach Boom since he was at Auburn for his first run, and I've pulled for him all the way through, even when he was at Florida. And living in the state of Florida, having to put up with Florida fans being upset with him, I always went to bat for Muschamp, and I was happy to see him land at South Carolina, even though it meant he was leaving Auburn after 1 year. But you're looking at this Gamecocks team. You got 7 returns on offense, 7 on defense. Bentley's back, and it feels like he's been there for 900 years. What's your outlook on this Gamecock team?
Honestly, I'm scared. Last year I went on ESPN, Paul Feinbaum show, and guaranteed that would be Georgia. And, I put a lot of pressure on those guys. But this year, the level of competition just went up another notch. I think we have the second or first toughest schedule in the country. Mm-hmm. And coming out of the blocks, it's important for us to beat a North Carolina and Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium. And, also following that, we have Alabama coming up in September. So it's important to win the games that you're supposed to win. And hopefully they can step up to the plate and sneak up and beat one of these top 3 teams, between the Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia's. Because if not, that can hurt the morale of a team. And, right now Vegas has us at 5.5 wins, and it truly matters about coming out of the blocks and just being competitive, winning that first game at North Carolina. And if you can play up to the competition of Alabama and get a win there or take them to the wire, then that can boost the morale, and guys can feel like, all right, we can go through the gauntlet. But if something happens where we stumble out of the blocks or get blown out by Alabama or get blown out by North Carolina, then I definitely could see how we wouldn't even be bowl eligible by going under 5.5 games. So it's truly going to matter, like exactly how the guys can handle playing in these pressure situations.
Yeah, I actually wrote that down exactly. I said check back on September 10th, and they'll have 2 games under their belt, because I think the direction of the season really hinges, especially on that first game against UNC, but then getting that W under your belt, Charleston Southern, and then to your point, it can come off the rails quickly if you're 0-2 going into something like that and you kind of staring at this huge giant, or you're 2-0 and building up some of that confidence and maybe able to knock off one of those Goliaths, if you will. Because, you guys get all of them, man.
Yeah, I mean,
App State's not even.
Yeah,
like the gimme game's not even a gimme game.
It's not. It's tough, and it truly. The guys really going to have to buckle down and take it week by week, because if they look ahead, it's so easy to go out there and get knocked off by a team that you're not supposed to lose to, especially like North Carolina. I look at them as a basketball school, but with them bringing back Mac Brown, this guy, he's a winner. He's won at North Carolina, he's won at Texas, and even though he's only been there for 8 months, I'm quite sure he's going to have his team ready to play. So it's going to be important for Jake Bentley to really just step up and be a leader. Right now his record is not that good in top 25 matchups, and that's something that he hopes to shake and get wins, meaningful wins in these type games, so people can think of him as like, he was able to step up and play well, because particularly that's not his forte right now. He's been struggling with the top ranked defenses.
Do you think a coach maybe more so in college than in the NFL can change the culture in 8 months or a year? How long does that take, do you think?
It takes years, but I've also seen guys that can come in and turn it around. If you can get through to the leaders of the team and have those guys to push through the dog days of training camp and being ready to fire off for week 1 of the season, it matters. Now, if you don't have respect from the team, then obviously you can see those situations where teams are just there just to be there. And, it's an ugly year, but whenever guys, have that morale and they get up around their coach, man, I've seen guys do some miraculous things. Like I remember when, we beat Alabama when they were number 1 in the country. We all were on the same page that year. We knew we wanted to do something special. We wanted to represent the East and play in the SEC championship game, and that was our team goal, and we stuck to it, and that's what propelled us to be where we was at. And unfortunately, we ended up losing to that guy Cameron Newton again. But it's one of those things that, hey, that's just how those were the cards we were dealt.
I was gonna say, yeah. Sometimes there's a buzzsaw.
I do like how it's losing to Cam versus it was not Gene Chizik that was doing anything to win the game. Jared and I make that joke all the time.
Hey, man, Gene Chizik brought the checkbook. That's what he did. Yeah, that was the only way Cam was out there. He wasn't playing for free.
I know people say that all the time. They're like, Cam was paid. I'm like, heck yeah, he was, and I'd do it again. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Where do I sign? So I guess the question is, can you find over 5.5 wins on that schedule for your Gamecocks this season?
Yeah, with me being a betting man, I'm not going to bet on it. It'll be something that I would do week by week. Just getting a feel for the team, but I wouldn't jump out there too early because that week 1 game is not a gimme. Right now I think the line on it is 7 points, and people expect us to get the win, but I can definitely see us going there winning by a field goal and not covering. So, at the end of the day, I'm a Gamecock fan and I just want to see us win. But whenever you get to talking about the numbers that our friends in the desert have, 7 points is a lot of points. So, I'm hoping they can cover that. But if not, man, I'll just take an outright win, just a money line win.
Yeah, I have no selection either, Mike. I agree. I think Tori hit the nail on the head. You're going to know a lot more about this team in 2 weeks. Let the information come in and then start taking it a week-by-week approach as opposed to, all right, I want to go over under this 5.5 number, and I'm not going to know till December. I think you'll know quite a bit about this team very early in the season.
I think we're all on the same boat on that one. I got one last question on South Carolina, and this was something that I found interesting as I was reading and prepping was, have you guys really lost 5 in a row to Kentucky?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Been bad. We've been snake bitten by Kentucky. I don't know what it is, but it's one of those places where when you actually get to Kentucky and you shower, the water is cold and the food is bad, and it's always around Midnight Madness when they bring out the basketball team, and for some reason everybody from Rupp Arena is there at the football stadium going crazy. So we've always had the worst luck in Kentucky, but hopefully we can snap that.
Yeah, they're like, is it basketball season yet?
Yeah, it's true. So we'll move to the other team that's been knocking on the door of, being that next national power, and that is the Georgia Bulldogs. 11-3 last year. Finally, Fromm doesn't have anyone behind him that, now he's just competing against himself. I think that's what he said. Bulldogs coming in over under at 10.5, minus 215 to win the SEC East. What are we feeling about these Bulldogs?
It's a good chance they can cover that number. They're coached. Coach Kirby, he's a dog. I mean, he understands how to recruit. He goes out and competes with the Alabamas and the Auburns when it comes to getting those guys from Georgia, Florida, Texas, wherever those hotbeds are for football. He understands how to get them. And what they have there is a unique system that Nick Saban does at Alabama, but he's using it at Georgia, and it's been working for him, and it's definitely given him opportunity to make some noise in the SEC East. And that's why it's important for South Carolina to get some games in and get that morale up so they can be ready to compete against the Georgia. But I think the problem with them when it comes to big games, SEC championship games or bowl games or playoffs, they're snake bitten because the coaching gets in the way. That's where you see a guy like Nick Saban, an upper echelon type guy. He exposes Coach Kirby and it makes him look like he's always the student instead of the teacher, because Nick is always one step ahead. So hopefully he can get that off of him, because if not, those guys at Georgia are thinking the same thing we're thinking. Like, yeah, we know we're going to roll through our schedule, but can we beat Alabama in the SEC championship game?
That's what it's all going to come down to. I mean, interesting part about their schedule, they have a string of 5 games, actually 6 games, where 5 of the games they are playing a team off a bye. So at Tennessee with Tennessee off a bye, South Carolina at home with Carolina off a bye, and then Florida, Mizzou, at Auburn, all with each of those teams coming off a bye. So I saw that in the schedule, and I was like, that's kind of weird. I mean, you're going through the junket already. These teams are getting 10 days, 2 weeks to rest up, especially as you move into November. I think that becomes more important. I think I'm asking you, Tori, because like everyone's been. It's one of those things like everybody gets nicked up towards the end of the year. It's like who can you get on the field and who can stay on the field in those important games, and that will be paramount to Georgia.
When you have extra time to prepare for a team that loves to run the ball and they play one particular coverage the entire time, it can give you some stuff to scheme up. But the athletes they have out there, I mean, these guys are special. They have the depth to where when guys get hurt, next man up, and they can go out and run for 1,000. I mean, right now, if we look in the NFL, you have Ty Gurley, you have Chubb, you have Sony Michel. There's so many backs and so much depth. You look at guys that play receiver that, are at Georgia, McCole Hartman, Ridley. I mean, they're loaded. They're talented, and, that's what makes them special. But, I think with the opposing team having an extra time, it will help. But depending on where those games are at, Georgia know that's important for them to win them all. And that's why they're one of the premier teams in the country, and they want one of those Final Four spots, one of those playoff spots.
I mean, I think you got to smile if you're a Georgia fan, because who's the backup quarterback at Alabama this year? Right? That's the Achilles heel lately, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I think
that's good stuff.
If you look at, I'm really intrigued. This Notre Dame game, I know that was a big one last year, but I'm interested to see now. I really want to see and hear from the Notre Dame fans that come down to Athens and hear what all they have to say. Is that, for you, is that going to tell you a lot about, because we don't really talk about Notre Dame because they're not in a conference, so Jared and I haven't really dove into it, but I feel like this will be kind of a little window. Is this a Notre Dame team that you think could go into, go to Athens and maybe shake it up a little bit or scare the dogs a tiny bit?
Man, I got a better chance at hitting a 50-game parlay. Those guys are not built for that. It's a different type of football once you head down south and you're between the hedges. That's going to be a hostile environment. A lot of those guys from Notre Dame they're going to be a deer in headlights. I mean, it's going to be extremely electric, and everybody's going to be watching. But and Notre Dame gets a lot of hype from NBC because that's who covers them, but they don't have a chance. I mean, these guys are just now you get to play them at home. I mean, they went up to Notre Dame and they squeaked by with a win, but just playing them there at Athens, it's going to be a tough place to play, and the Bulldogs definitely should handle them.
Yeah, I feel like it was like a grind for them to win last year, but I think Georgia's significantly better. I think Notre Dame's lost quite a bit. So I'm with you. I think it's early and often. I have it on high authority. Guy, I was talking to a Georgia booster guy, just sold his tickets for $1,000 a pop. So it's going to be jumping in there when those guys come to town.
So Dog's actually on a 13 home game winning streak right now. Do we see over or under 10.5, or are we even playing it with this team?
I mean, out of pure principle, I can't bet over 10.5. Certainly the favorite that 5-game, 6-game stretch in late November kind of spooked me again. Just where and I think Tori hit the nail on the head where he said kind of some of it depends on where you're at. But if you're trying to get a team healthy and you have additional time to prepare, Georgia's it's clear that they're the favorite. They're going to get everyone's best shot. Now, it's still played on the field. So do you have the athletes required to actually execute? That remains to be seen. Is Vanderbilt going to beat them? No. Is Tennessee going to beat them? No. But you got all these other schools that are going to have to come in there. Florida late in the year. I'm not very high on Florida, but it's a pass for me. If you gun to my head, which is a segment that we have, Tori, I'd bet under.
Yeah. I'm staying away. I can sit back and be a fan, an SEC fan, but 10.5, that's too steep for me.
Yeah, I would I also would lean more towards the under, but I feel like now that I feel like we're all agreeing, so I'll wait and see how the next one plays out with Florida, and then maybe I'll flip it up here. Jared and I usually we tell everyone if we agree on something, then please take your money, back up the Briggs truck, and
go the other way.
Yeah, exactly, and just go the other way. So we'll head down to Gainesville. And we got Dan Mullen now in year 2 with Felipe Franks, who I think made improvements last year. Defense that's returning 8 starters. This Gator team, I believe, their over-under is coming in at 9.
9.
And they have, according to this, the number 10 strength of schedule. Which, if you look at all these SEC pages, for the most part, everyone's got a top 25 schedule. So everyone
they'll play each other.
So we're all in a conference.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like the Patriots have. They always talk about how the Patriots have the worst schedule. It's like, yeah, 1, they don't have to play the Patriots, and 2, they get 2 each of Jets, Dolphins, and Bills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the league that you're in. So if you're playing all these guys, like by definition, you're gonna have the most difficult schedule.
So we'll make this a little flavor of I was going to say Flavor Flav, but I just went with I don't know why. Obviously Florida's playing on Saturday.
Yeah.
Here in Orlando against Miami. How are we feeling about that game? And then how are we feeling about the Gators overall? So we'll even throw in the extra candy. I believe the line's at 7.5. Minus 7.5 for the Gators.
I love that game. I was just at the University of Miami, and I watched those guys work out. And right now, they're extremely small. Their offensive line they're little. They have a brand new strength and conditioning coach. She's one of my best friends. They just brought him in, but what those guys need to work on is getting depth and strength. I mean, they don't look like the University of Miami. A lot of TV hype is going to be talked about. The U is back, but from me being there and seeing what was going on, these guys have a lot to work on, and I can see the Florida defensive line feasting. I'm talking about having maybe a shutout type game because they're going to get after it. They're going to run the football, and they're just going to play smash mouth ball. I think Miami, they'll be ready to roll in a year or two because my friend he's definitely a great strength and conditioning coach, but he's only been there for 6 months, and those guys can't. Physically, they're not ready to take on what they have in front of them with that schedule. So, with me being a betting man, that's a no-brainer. Pound Florida. It's not even going to be close. I mean, they're going to pound those guys.
Wow. Okay. I'm actually pretty bearish on Florida this year in general. I agree with you. I don't think Miami's there, and Miami's kind of like Texas. And we talked about this in our Big 12 preview. I'm pretty low on Texas this year. I'm pretty low on Florida this year. But I looked at this one maybe as an opportunity for Florida to slip up. But if you're telling me the U is back or is not back, rather, like they want them back. They want them back. Like they win one game and it's like pump the brakes, dude. They're not recruiting nearly to the level that they did. Like the teams that they had in the early 2000s was, you talk about like next guy up. That was like NFL Hall of Famers were number 2 on the depth chart. Like this guy gets hurt, next guy comes in and just crazy. So it's interesting to hear you say that. I wouldn't have guessed that. They're in the non-Clemson division of the ACC though. So JV.
Yeah, I was extremely shocked just to see the physique of those guys. The pass strength coach they had, they really didn't push them to the brinks when it came to physically preparing them for playing that top-notch football. and now with having a new guy in, they've been working extremely hard. But to be a playoff team or to represent your conference, you got to have those dogs in there, and they're just a year or two away. They do a great job recruiting, but right now there's some puppies. There are a lot of puppies in there, and hopefully they have to earn their stripes.
I like how you brought in the Florida State reference there. Got the Jameis Winston conference. Got all the Florida schools in there. Sorry, Jared, you go ahead.
Yeah, but
that's all good.
Yeah, so I'm excited about Saturday because I can definitely see Florida really just taking advantage of a younger team.
I'm excited about Saturday because it means I don't have to wait any longer to watch football on TV. I was like watching Canadian football a month ago because my wife's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "I just need some football back in my life. That's all."
I mean,
general thoughts on Florida? Oh, go ahead, Micah.
I was just gonna say you can't talk down on Canadian football. I mean, we have you played some Canadian ball, didn't you?
Yeah, of course. I played, led the league in touchdowns, and it was one of those things. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and from there I retired and got into television. But it's a unique game. It's played. Obviously, it's an offensive game. You throw the ball so much, so it's a receiver's dream. You go out there and you can catch a lot of balls, but it's nothing like being able to play on Saturday in the SEC or buckling your chin strap and playing on Sundays in the NFL. But having an opportunity to play up there in that league was a lot of fun, and I met my beautiful girlfriend up here, and it's been a phenomenal time playing in Toronto. So now
that's
but being back to Florida, looking at their 9 wins, I'm kind of skeptical about it, but I can definitely see how they can pull it off and might get the 9th win in a bowl game because obviously they're going to be bowl eligible. Last year what did they finish? How many wins they finished with last year?
They were 10-3.
10.
Yeah, 10-3.
They beat Michigan in the bowl game.
Yeah, so that's one of those things. They're going to find a way to get in the bowl. I can see the bowl being a 9th win or being a 10th win.
No, okay, so we guys one more step back on the Canadian thing because I watch Canadian football. My wife is the uninitiated one, and I was explaining to her because they were punting on 3rd down, and she kept asking like, "What is this thing? Why are they doing that?" I said, "There's only 3 downs, honey. So like, you gotta. There's not 4 downs." So she went to Auburn. She knows SEC football, but she kept asking, "Why are they punting? It's only 3rd down." I'm like, "That's why." I'm bearish on Florida this year. I was actually pretty bullish on them last year. I'm not buying the hype train. I'm not really in the Felipe Franks camp. I think Dan Mullen is a great coach, and I think he would be one of those people that you talked about that kind of flipped it on its head culture-wise in a very short period of time. It's just a tough schedule, and they got they draw LSU and they draw us out of the West. They have the Georgia game, obviously, in Jacksonville, and then they open with Miami, which I was putting a little bit more stock in that, but I just think it's tough. I don't see a lot of scenarios where they win 10 games. As a consequence of that, I'll play the under 9. I actually do see quite a few scenarios where they end up with exactly 9 wins, in which case I get my money back, but I see a lot more scenarios where they go under that number than where they go over.
Yeah, for me, you have these toss-up games where you go, I mean, not to be biased, but Auburn, I think, is going to be a big game. They've lost their last 3 homecoming games, which I think is interesting. Normally, homecoming, you like to make everyone happy. And then at LSU, I think LSU, that is going to be an absolutely insane environment because they've been licking their chops down in Baton Rouge for, what, two seasons now, trying to get the Gators down there. And I think that's just going to be an absolutely insane atmosphere. So I look at this schedule, I see right at 9, but if I were to lean one way with Florida, I think I would lean more towards the over. So I would agree with you on that because you play Auburn at home, that can be your teeter game there. You never know what's going to happen with Georgia. I do think that Georgia wins that game, and Florida State is just I don't think Taggart's got it, but that's a totally different subject for another day. So we'll move now to the team that made the biggest splash, I guess, in the offseason, and that is the Missouri Tigers. Their over-unders coming in at 8, obviously winning the Kelly Bryant sweepstakes over the summer. Is Kelly Bryant good enough for 8 wins for these Missouri Tigers?
No. Never believed in Missouri. I don't believe in Kelly Bryant. It's a reason why he transferred and is not at Clemson anymore is because he's not an elite quarterback. What Clemson has down there in Trevor Lawrence, he's a potential number 1 overall pick. And it was exposed in a championship game when Kelly Bryant played against that Alabama defense. He really couldn't do anything, couldn't move the ball. And now he has to play in the SEC, and it's going to be hard every week. I was looking at their schedule. They have some wins. You have Wyoming and Troy, but Troy might be one of those teams that mess around and beat you at Vandy. So, but I just don't believe in them. Air raid offense, it never works. Whenever you have a team that can run the ball and take the air out of a game, it puts a lot of pressure on your offense to produce when the time of possession has been on the opposing team side. So I will go under on Kelly Bryant, and I'll go under on the Missouri Tigers.
Yeah, they got no defense. And I would agree. I mean, you lose Drew Lock, who could spin it. I think Drew Lock's way more dynamic than Kelly Bryant throwing the football. And they won 8 games last year, and now you're asking to win more than 8 games with less people back on defense. And a quarterback, again, that I don't think necessarily fits their system. So hindsight, I guess I'm glad he didn't go to Auburn because we got Bo Nix now.
I will say, I mean, for Kelly Bryant, it's got to be weird. Your first SEC game, you're strapping it up, you're ready to play. Well, not SEC game, but first time playing for an SEC school, and you're going to stinking Laramie, Wyoming, and you got to run out on the field. That's got to be a little deflating. I'm with you guys. I think Missouri is definitely an under. Unless you guys got anything else on the Tigers, I think Kelly Bryant's really the main talking piece. I mean, there's really nothing else with that program right now that I think it jumps out on the headlines.
Odom, the coach, is hanging on by a thread the last 4 years. They're like, he's going to get fired. They have a good year. Going to get fired, have a good year. Like, on and on. The guy's like a cockroach.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure on Kelly Bryant because you've been in the system for 4 years or 3-4 years, and now you get thrusted into Missouri, and it just takes time. And when things don't work out the way you want it to, it can be frustrating, and it doesn't help that you're playing in the SEC, and it's going to really be exposed. If you can't go out there and push the ball vertically downfield, you dinking and dunking is not going to win any games.
It's true. That's so true. Yeah, SEC, like you said, you have to be able to slightly run the football and possess it. Because if you go 3 and out like that, your defense or lack thereof is going to burn up even more. So we'll head to Knoxville. Jeremy Pruitt, second year for the Tennessee Volunteers. This one was the only one I couldn't find a consistent over/under in. I saw 7 and I saw 6.5 for the Vols. I think this was a team that you saw progression in last year in certain games. Are they finally heading back in the right direction? Because we saw under the previous tenure with Jones that they had all the talent, but for some reason on the field they just couldn't get it done. Tori, what do you think about these Vols?
You know what? They scare me, and the reason why is that another close friend of mine, Coach Craig Fitzgerald, former strength coach at South Carolina, is now the head strength coach at Tennessee, and he's been there for 2 years, and those guys have took it up another level physically. They were young, and a lot of those guys were kids, and now they look like soldiers out there on the field. They're extremely physical. Just watching them grow and being in that offense for 2 years as well as that defense, I can see them sneaking up and beating some teams. I mean, it truly matters having an elite strength and conditioning program. When you have that confidence to go in there and set personal records in the weight room, you can go out and you feel like you can compete against anyone on Saturday. And that's something that he instilled in us when we were at South Carolina. That's what propelled us to go on that run where we beat Clemson 5 years in a row. And it was all because of him. It was one of those points. It was to the point where Coach Spurrier was scared to talk to him. Because no matter what Coach Spurrier said, Coach Fitz was the guy that he ran us after practice, even after wins. Like, it wasn't such thing as Victory Monday or whatever. No days off. We were still lifting and squatting heavy during during the season, when we were getting ready to play against a Clemson or Auburn or whoever. And with them still having all those facilities up there in Tennessee, I think they could do something special.
Yeah, I mean, they beat our butt last year, so I can't crush them too bad. But I think Guarantano's a good quarterback. I think he's a tough kid. Unfortunately, I think Tennessee gets this rap of them. They're back. Another one of those schools, kind of like Texas, kind of like Notre Dame, and they just haven't been able to do it yet. Unfortunately, it's with me. It's kind of I'll believe it when I see it, and I'm not saying that they can. And Tori's talking to a lot more people there than I do. So, but for me, you're gonna have to show me. Speaking of Missouri, the Show Me State, Tennessee's going to have to show me that they can win more than 7 games with some type of regularity before I'm going to be putting my hard-earned greenbacks on the over from the Vols.
We can all agree, though, that we love singing Rocky Top, though, right? I mean,
I hate that song.
You hate it, but it's one of those that you walk around and you're like, Rocky Top. Woo!
Yeah, it's catchy.
Yeah.
It's like USC. It's like. Oh, I almost said it's like USC, which to Tori is probably like blasphemous because I was referring to Southern California. But like like for me, Tennessee, just get something new. That's all you ever play. We go to Neyland and you play it 10,000 times.
That's the pot calling the kettle black, though, because Auburn. It's not like we've changed anything. We changed the logo slightly, and everyone blows up.
You got at Auburn. You guys still play T-Pain. All I do is win. And Cam was dancing to that back in 2010. It's 2019.
The swag surfing made a comeback, actually. I think 2 seasons ago too. So I mean, they're really diving into. Diving into it. So Jared's. Are you going to be putting money on the under, Jared, or are you just going to go no play?
No play.
No play? What about you, Tori?
No play. I'll play them individually because they're a team that can sneak up and they can crush your playoff season. Like you might be overlooking them and they'll come in there and knock you off because they have the talent and they have the personnel. So, but I can't put any money on them to cover 7 games. But I can see them playing spoiler to a few teams though.
So we'll head to. Oh, sorry, Jared. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe even just a couple like money line week to week games. So I think what Tori's saying is spot on. You can sneak up on somebody like they did to us. You get a nice price on them week to week.
It's true. So we'll head to the basketball school now. Joke. I can't say. I mean, Auburn. We were better at basketball last year than we were at football. So I guess that's it happens occasionally once in a blue moon, but. So we're gonna head to Lexington. Mark Stoops already in his 7th season. God, that's crazy. They were 10-3 last year. I think everyone's surprise of the SEC East. Can they reproduce the magic, or is this Wildcat team going to be sputtering to try and get over that 6.5 win out there in Vegas?
Yeah, they're coming back down to earth. Last year they caught a lot of people with their pants down and that's what happens. You get some confidence and you get a big win, and they just kept rolling. There are times where they've been beating South Carolina every year, so you can book that. That's not good. Clemson and Kentucky has beat us 5 years in a row. So hopefully those guys can shake that off. But I see them coming back down there. They had too many draft picks. A lot of guys get drafted, and it's hard to replace that surplus of talent.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, last year was kind of when everything came together for Kentucky. All kind of came. Mark Stoops' 6-year tenure at the time came to a head. You had a bunch of draft picks, a bunch of guys that were seniors. I mean, we're talking 1st, 2nd, 3rd round picks. So this team was stacked, and I think, ironically, was still able to sneak up on people and significantly overperform their expectations. So I'm with Tori. I see a regression here. I'll be playing the under 6.5. I don't think. They do much more than get to a lower tier bowl, if at all.
Yeah, I think I'm going to actually play the under on this one as well. You lose Benny Snell. As fun as that guy was to watch in post-game interviews, I mean, my goodness, he was electric and really fun. I just think, Tori, you've said it numerous times about in the SEC, you need to be able to establish the run game. And because of the unknown, if Kentucky can't possess the ball on offense. They only have 4 returners on defense. A lot of unknowns. If you're not able to possess the ball, I'm going to tend to shade towards the losing side on that one. So you guys, we'll move to a coach that I know, Jared, you've had mixed emotions about, and that's Derek Mason and the Vanderbilt Commodores. This team 6-7 last year. They got 7 returners on offense, 5 on defense. Their over/under sitting at 5. I feel like every year it's 5.
Every year.
Yeah.
They're picked in the cellar every year.
You look at this schedule: Georgia, Purdue, LSU to start the season.
Brutal.
if you get beat bad 3 times in a row at the start of the season, are you able to pull yourself back up by your bootstraps and get to 5 wins at that tail end there?
The thing about Vandy is they have no expectation. You know, it's not like Auburn or South Carolina or any other school. They're more of the GPA school, and they're usually the homecoming game. And it's one of those situations where it's hard to go play at Vandy. Only way Vandy usually sneaks up on people. The only way Vandy doesn't sneak up on a team is when they start talking. Like I think a year or 2 ago they called out Alabama and Bama decided to put it on them. But
yeah,
it's hard to go there and beat Vandy, and it's even harder when they come to you because you just somewhat overlook them. But I would just stay away from it because they're another team that they're used to being in this situation. They might get the snot beat out of them by these top 3 schools, but they show up at Auburn and next thing you know, it's a tie game in the 4th quarter, or they show up at South Carolina and it comes down to a game-winning field goal. That's just Vanderbilt football.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I actually am going to be playing over 5. So as Micah said, I was screaming from whatever rooftop I had at the time that he needed to quit calling the defensive plays. So he was trying to be head coach and defensive coordinator all at the same time. We've seen lack of success in our world from Gus Malzahn as it pertains to that. Recently, on again, off again, on again, off again. And ever since he gave up the play calling duties on defense, they went to 3 straight bowls. So I think he hit the nail on the head. And I would answer Micah's question and say this is a team that's accustomed to getting beat. Just as the brand, like you said, it's difficult to play at Vandy. You're going to see them sneak up on people and get wins, even if they start the season 0-3. Purdue, I think you will pull back a little bit this year. I know they had a pretty good year last year, but lost a quarterback, lost quite a few people on defense. So I'm playing the over 5 wins in Vanderbilt, and I would expect them to go to a bowl game for the 4th straight year.
Ooh, man. I mean, you just look at the schedule. I agree. I think when you go to Nashville, it's usually that's where the magic tends to happen. But they're at Tennessee, they're at Florida, they're at South Carolina, they're even at Ole Miss, who I don't think that's a huge, road difficulty game. And then Georgia, LSU are home. But it's so early in the season that I think these teams, I feel like it could go either way. I mean, and Tori, you were a player, so you'd know better. Are you more sluggish at the start of the season, or are you more amped to be playing football again and come out of the gates hot as a team?
It depends on your schedule and what's going on. It's different for every team. For the most part, everyone is excited about being back and playing football, but Vanderbilt, they understand like, hey, it's tough for us first 3 games of the year, but they could care less because, with them, they just want to get to a bowl game. They're happy with playing in the Birmingham Bowl. Everyone else in the SEC will rather sit out, but they take pride in getting wins however they can and planning that last game, even if it's a bowl team with 5 wins. That's starting to happen now where, they're letting these people in. Vandy will go there and play their hearts out. So it's one of those things, like if you're on the betting side, I can see how you can take them to go over. And plus, it's a lot of value on it. Plus, 2,800, man, that's a lot of love right there.
That's true.
Yeah, there we go. I've bet them in bowl games quite a bit for that exact reason, because I think they want to be there. I think that's a huge thing come bowl season. You saw Georgia losing to Texas last year. You saw Florida beating Michigan, and it's just like these guys. My stock
Auburn,
answer is always about Auburn and UCF.
UCF, because they just don't want. It sucks. Like one week you're playing in the SEC championship, and then the following week you're back in the Georgia Dome and you're playing in a Chick-fil-A bowl, and it just don't feel the same way. It truly doesn't. It's a bad feeling, and I've been a part of it where we played Auburn in the SEC championship game and turned right back around 2 weeks later and play in a Chick-fil-A bowl and just lay an egg against Florida State because we didn't want to be there.
Yep. You hear all that, all my friends? That is validation from someone who actually played in the games. So you can all take that.
Yeah, you can feel it. I mean, as a fan, you can feel it. I'm quite sure.
Yeah.
You're like, man, it sucks. Like it doesn't feel the same way. The vibe is different, and guys start counting their money. They're like, well, I'm projected to be a first round or second round pick. Man, guys are like, man, you know what? I'm gonna take my foot off the gas. I might play a series, and I'm going to tell them I got a toenail injury or something, or I'm not going to play at all.
Yeah.
Come up with a hammy.
In pregame.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go, Jared. There's the validation you've ever wanted.
Yeah, this is so great. This is the best part of the whole thing. I get validated. I've been screaming this because Mike and I live in Orlando. Everyone knows we went to Auburn, and obviously the UCF people just chirp, 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 chirp. And I'm like, look, man, we were there last week. Nope, the players got to go back to the same building, and instead of being in the playoff, now they got to be in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, and nobody cares.
Yeah,
so we're gonna get run.
Yep, and that's exactly what happened. They went out and they just played their hearts out.
Yeah, we still almost had them. And that's a testament to the talent difference, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. That you could be that unmotivated and still make it a close game.
So I'll knock Jared off of his soapbox here, and we'll get back to this. But when you look at to win the East values, is there anyone that you see between the two of you who could be your dark horse where you could get some good value that maybe sneaks their way in, wins the SEC East, and goes to the championship?
I hate to say this, but I can see Florida, plus 375, depending on the health and how they can take care of the football, because defensively they're stout. I mean, and Dan Mullen, he's a hell of a play caller, and I can see Georgia just choking, like they always do. Everyone expects them to represent the East, and I can definitely see them getting knocked off and Florida being a representative. I would love South Carolina to do it at plus 1,200, but it really depends on how we can handle the first 3 weeks of the season. That'll tell it all. So, just looking at it from a betting perspective, I would say Florida at plus 375.
What about you, Jay?
Yeah, I feel like because I'm betting them under, it's hard for me to say that I would be okay with them. I'd probably take Georgia and lay the 215. I mean, as weird as that sounds, I would agree with Tori, and I kind of look down the roster, and I know he would love to have Carolina do it. I just think their schedule is so brutal, and Florida, as far as I'm concerned, is really going to be the only primary contender. And I think, that is going to come down to the game in Jacksonville, the cocktail party or whatever we're supposed to call it now. And I would say Georgia's better than a 215 favorite in that game. So, just again, kind of breaking it down to first level stuff in that game, who's going to win? I'll take Georgia, and I think that propels them to the SEC East title.
Tori, I like having you on the show because I feel like I agree with you a lot. So I'm going to have you on here a little bit more because then you can back me up when we talk to Jared. We can you validate my opinions. I think Florida, and obviously, Jared, you hinted at it, but I think for value and possibility, Florida's going to be your best option if you're looking to actually make more off of your investment. They can do it. We've seen in the past with that team. Whenever they play in Jacksonville, it's a coin flip. Georgia might come out, and they had no business being in a couple of those games with Urban Meyer coach teams. And then the whole team ran out and celebrated a touchdown. And then next thing you know, Georgia ran away with it. Florida's stolen some game from them. I mean, you got to remember, Florida was it Burton? Drop pass against Georgia away from playing for potentially a national championship.
Yeah, Trey Burton.
Trey Burton, yeah. And so this is a huge game, and it's one of those where we've seen it in the West now with Auburn and Alabama. It's come down to that game of, okay, you're jockeying for position all season. and then that one puts it over. Now there were definitely some times where it was Florida, South Carolina when Georgia was kind of having their shaky times, and it was always great to watch Spurrier run back into the swamp and try and hand it to the Gators, which I always enjoyed. But I think Florida, if you look at it, it's definitely where I'm leaning, and I'm probably going to play it actually because I think it could happen. But I know I cut you off, man. Jared. You were going to say something, were you?
No, that's good.
All right, well,
you guys can team up on me some more.
Yeah.
I get it. It's cool. I see.
Well, Tori, I just want to say thank you so much for reaching out on Twitter, and that was awesome. I sent a screenshot to Jared. I was like, holy cow, like this is awesome. Like somebody reached out to us. We really enjoyed having you on here and hearing your insight from your playing days and at South Carolina and what I mean. It's hard not to have good stories when you got Steve Spurrier and Garcia, on the same team as you. So, so we've talked a little bit about this weekend. So you're talking Florida is who you got this weekend at -7.5. Let's hear what your projection is for your playoff teams. I know I'm throwing this on you on the spot, and then I'll let you go from here.
Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, and that fourth spot. I don't know who to put in the fourth spot. I just know I have Jalen Hurts winning the Heisman this year.
Really?
So it'd be three years in a row. Oklahoma. He's another guy I work with a lot, close friend of mine, Jalen, and he's gonna tear it up. I mean, I've said I was with Patrick Mahomes, and a few other quarterbacks in LA, and just going over the offense with him. This guy is beyond his years, and he's used to seeing a SEC defense, and now he gets to go against a Big 12 defense. He's going to go out there and tear it up. I mean, these guys are not going to be able to tackle him, and I can see him definitely winning the Heisman.
Nice. Tori's team, Jalen. That's what I said. I predicted on our Big 12 one that Oklahoma was going to go undefeated because of exactly him, and I love Lincoln Riley. And to your point, those defenses, it's nothing.
See, Tori, this is, again, I had Jalen Hurts too. I'm one of my off-season props. So this is great. I covered all my bases. I did throw some money on Trevor Lawrence because I figured, hey, why not? It's a safe bet. And then Justin Fields, actually, at Ohio State. I threw some on him just in case. So I feel like those transfers, those guys have the best opportunity to make a big splash, and they're going to have the spotlight on them early. So I'm with you. I think Hurts can definitely do it. But it'll be interesting to see, does Big 12, or sorry, not Big 12, does Pac-12 or Big 10 squeeze their way into the playoff again, or are we going to have another double up?
Yeah, I think it's going to be two SEC schools, and that's the reason why we'll have to see what happens between Georgia and Florida. Who's going to battle it out to represent.
It'll be interesting. That's why they play the game, right?
Yep, that's why the games are played. Yeah.
Yep, that's true. Well, Tori, thanks again so much for joining us. Jared, you got anything else you want to add?
Yeah, thank you. Huge thank you. It's a huge commitment of your time. I understand that's in very high demand, so thank you for sharing it with us, and it was great talking to you. Great meeting you, man.
Oh, man, thank you guys, and, keep up the great work. I'm a fan of you. I'm going to continue to listen and invite me on anytime.
Where can people find your stuff, Tori? Where they want to get some more of this, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat at TGurley81. Not Todd Gurley, but TGurley81. So don't tweet me on Sundays talking about he's taking a knee or he's playing bad. I'm at home on a couch or I'm in a studio watching a game. And Todd Gurley is not tweeting you. It's Tori Gurley. So I get that all the time. But you guys can check me out on there, and appreciate you guys for having me on, and just a lot of fun. I'm so ready for kickoff on Saturday.
Oh yeah,
that makes three of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no more falling down on the 1 yard line. Okay, you're screwing up everyone's over unders. Well, Tori Gurley, thanks again so much for joining us. Once again, I'm Michael Larson. That's Big Brother Jared Larson. Thanks for tuning in, junkies. We're out of here.
See ya.